see the light of the beauty and the power of manual bids in your ad account, you switch over, everything goes great at first, or maybe doesn't go great at first, I don't know. But then you hit this slowdown period. And this happens all the time, like I said, because manual bidding gets you really far at first. Like the media buying really, really does matter. Okay. I just want to be really clear about this. And if you're newer to this podcast, if you haven't listened to this, watched it before, I have huge amounts of content going through how to set up and how to think about manual bids in your ad account. Probably the the best places to go look if you want kind of an intro to this. I have an episode called 7 Reasons for Cost Controls or something like that. It'll be linked in the show notes. But then probably especially check out my Opening the Books episodes, especially with Beard Brand and Pretty Boy. Those episodes go through like how to really build an ad account with cost controls. So the argument for cost controls episode, and then Beard Brand and Pretty Boy episodes. I'll link those in the show notes. I just made the note right now so that you can get those. So if you want some background on what I'm talking about, this is that'll get you started. Okay. But a lot of people now at this point are doing this. I've noticed this actually, like increasingly more and more brands, still probably not the majority, are running on bid caps, cost caps, or target ROAS, or some combo thereof. As I've said a lot of times before, I prefer bid caps, and I'm also layering that on with target ROAS bidding. I'm running both in most accounts that I'm working on. And that's my preferred way of doing it. But to be frank, it's not the biggest deal to me if you actually choose cost caps over bid caps or whatever, as long as you're doing that basic setup. But what will happen inevitably is as you do that, you typically will see some kind of performance increase right away. And that's because the media buying really does matter. One of the pieces of advice you sometimes hear is there's a way of framing this, which is like, listen, people talk so much about media buying, but they need to talk more about marketing. They need to talk about more about, creative strategy or whatever. And that framing is wrong. It is unhelpful because you should actually be trying to optimize everything you can within reason in your business. And your meta ad spend is very likely the biggest or second biggest line item in your entire business. And so managing that with carefulness and efficiency is super important for the bottom line that you're trying to create. So don't listen to anybody who says media buying doesn't matter. It does matter. It does matter. It makes a real big difference. And you can do that well and focus on other marketing. And I'm going to explain some more of that in a second. You can actually write great ads and run manual bids at the same time. Okay, it's not that hard. You just do both. Okay. So the reason that I pound the media buying thing all the time is because it really makes a big difference in your ad account. But again, a lot of you, if you're listening to or watching this, you're already convinced, you've already made the switch, and you're going, okay, now what now? Especially if you see big forward steps in your ad account and then steps backwards. Okay. I can think of 3 examples recently. One client who actually fired me after we saw some big steps forward, and there's going to be more to that story later. In their account, things went great for manual bids for a while, and then they stopped going so great. I have another couple folks. One of them is a client that I'm still working with, where we again saw really good steps forward, build the whole account on manual bids, and then just hit a total plateau. So it wasn't like a big step backwards so much, but just like couldn't break through a certain plateau. I've worked with a coaching client, so I'm gonna have 4 examples actually. A coaching client, that same thing. They saw big steps forward, then steps back, then steps forward, then steps back, and now are kind of in between right now. So manual bids worked for a little while or whatever. And then another one who reached out to me and said, manual bids worked awesome for us. We saw way more profit, etc. And this is not a client of mine, but said like, look, this is like a huge problem now, because now we can't seem to get any spend through. And here's one of the things that many of those people will do when that happens, okay? Because they have thought a lot about manual bids. They've heard me talk about it. It's a sort of top of mind change that they've made in the ad account. They will attribute the lack of success when you hit those plateaus or even backward steps. They will attribute the lack of success in their ad account to the manual bids. And therefore, the way they will solve the problem is by going back away from manual bids. And that is a mistake. And that's the mistake I want you to avoid right now. If you have a major step backwards after switching to manual bids, and this is like the kind of the whole point of this episode, it is extremely likely that the problem is not with the manual bids. Let's actually break that down a little bit, okay? Let's say we'll make a super simplified account here, a hypothetical super simplified account, okay? For the sake of ease, right? Let's say all your manual bids are bid caps set at $100 on 7-day click, and you're spending $2,000 a day, okay? Well, let's actually make it even easier. $100,000 a month, okay? $100,000 a month, $100 bid caps, 7-day click. That's the setup, okay? Everything is the same. Maybe it's one product, and it's just that. Okay, what will happen is that you will suddenly, the spend will go backwards or plateau. You'll hit $100,000, you'll stay there all the time, or maybe the spend goes back to $75,000. Now you're running bid caps, so that's $75,000, 25% reduction in your spend. Okay, that $75,000 also still runs at $100 CAC, okay, on 7-day click, because or a little less because it's a bid cap, right? Somewhere basically right around target. So say the target doesn't change, the efficiency doesn't change, but the spend goes backwards, okay? And now suddenly you're going like, oh no, our spend is going backwards. Then the next month it goes down to 50,000. And so after 2 months, now you're going like, something is really wrong here, okay? And here is the change that many people will make right away. Something is wrong with our media buying. We got to switch it. Meta was giving me, $100,000 a month of this spend. Now it's only giving me 50. And essentially, the logic subtly, people don't say this, but subtly they point at Meta and say Meta is doing it wrong. Meta is the problem. And specifically, the bid caps are the problem. It's like the bid caps are choking the spend too much, and I should be getting more spend through, but the bid caps won't let me. And so what I need to do is switch over to auto bids because bid caps aren't working. And they'll say Meta is the problem in a lot of other ways. Sometimes actually it is more explicit. They'll, something changed with the algorithm, something, whatever. And that is the fundamental mistake. The fundamental mistake is to believe that something is wrong with Meta and with the bid caps, when actually the problem is almost certainly with you. And over, I see this. The problem is not the bids. It's not the bids. The problem, it really isn't. The manual bids are almost always doing exactly what you've asked them to do, which is to only give you as much spend as you actually can get based on the target that you've set. And when Meta goes backwards in your spend, it is very, very likely that the reason it has gone backwards in your spend is because you don't have the performance needed in your creative, in your product, in your offers, whatever, right? In some section of that, it is unlikely you're going to get the performance at the scale that you are trying to get it to. And so the problem isn't with Meta, it is with you. Meta is feeding back accurate information about that. Okay. And so that is so crucial to understand, because inevitably what people will do is they will switch things back over from manual bids over to auto bids. And I'm actually to a point now where I sort of don't begrudge this to people, because I understand the instinct so much. And basically, like, if you never scratch that itch, you probably will somewhere in the back of your mind believe that's the problem forever. You'll just keep believing that like, if I just switch back to auto bids, it would work. If I just switch back to ASC, it will work, whatever. And so sometimes I kind of like people to do this, because nothing will really reinforce the idea for them that this is the problem until they actually see that, because they'll switch over and set it at $3,000 a day, whatever, to get back to their $100,000 a month spend. And when they do that, they switch back over, and then yes, they get through $100,000 in the month, but they get it at a 0.6 ROAS instead of the 1 ROAS that they wanted before, the 1.5 ROAS, whatever. You know what I'm saying, right? Or they bid for $100 CAC on their bid caps, and they end up getting $150 CAC at $100,000 in spend. And so yes, they do get more spend through, but it turns out it was not at the efficiency that they wanted. And again, the frustration is like, why won't Facebook give me the conversions I want? And instead, you have to turn around and say, the problem is with me. So if you are to that point where you are there and you're frustrated and you're stuck, I understand that you might go and switch. Now, I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should switch back to auto bids, but I understand the instinct to do it. And sometimes I actually think you will never believe me unless you actually go do it yourself. Like, I can sit here and try and convince you all day, but you'll just go like, nah, I just don't, whatever. Okay. So that's what people will do. But that is the outcome that happens over and over and over again. I see it. People switch to auto bids and you get worse performance. Now, there are a number of ways that this can go wrong. Okay. There's like a lot of different ways you can break it, is what I'm saying. And so, I'm going to list some of them in a second for you, but it is not easy to solve. And I understand that. So manual bidding, I'm very comfortable with it. I've been doing it for a long time now. I sort of know where to look for the problems, and normally can find some issues in the bidding and all that, right? But a lot of times it's really hard to see where you are screwing it up, okay? And it can be in a few different places. And also, by the way, the other thing can happen, which is that manual bids overspend. So it's not that it's underspending at your target. It'll spend your full budget, but it'll spend above target, or below target, as the case may be, right? Under your ROAS target, above your CAC target. And that's another frustration. And people go, oh, manual bids don't work. When again, inevitably, a lot of times it's actually not manual bids that don't work. It's actually that you've set something up wrong. So let me now, with that having been said, if we come in with a fundamental assumption at the baseline that we are the problem and not the machine, okay, then we have to say, okay, what do you do next? And I want to just repeat that assumption one more time. This isn't, it is possible that Meta is the problem. Okay, so I will not rule that out. I've certainly come across accounts where Meta makes the wrong decision, quote unquote wrong decision about what ad to promote, at least for some amount of time. Sometimes with a lot of spend, sometimes a little bit of spend. But while I think it can make the wrong decision, I think that's most likely not what's happening, and it should be as a baseline assumption when you come in to troubleshoot your problems. You should probably assume that's not what's going on. You may uncover some things that say, okay, I now finally believe, yes, that this is the problem. This particular ad got way too much spend for whatever reason. Got not enough spend for whatever reason. It's not like it doesn't happen at all. It's just that it's unlikely to be the problem. It's not where you should start your analysis. You should start from the assumption that you in some way are the problem, and only when you rule out that you have any of the problems that it could have been you, that's when you should switch over to say, okay, I think something is actually wrong on the meta side here. The system is not perfect, and it's broken in some way. There you go. You've heard me talk about my friends at More Staffing and how I've staffed my business with them. The truth is I've actually done the bulk of that with a sort of subsidiary of More Staffing called Behind the Scenes. And Behind the Scenes is specifically contract creative staffing so that you can scale up your creative output. So I have designers and video editors through Behind the Scenes, and Behind the Scenes is the same model as More Staffing. It's finding incredible talent in the Philippines who have deep experience with design and edit and all those kinds of things. I have a graphic designer who worked on a major magazine in the Philippines, now working with me and my clients and my businesses. So it's really good quality work. I've loved working with Behind the Scenes. And so if you are listening to, watching this show, you've heard me talk about offshoring talent in the Philippines. You want to do that specifically in the design and video editing part of your business, and maybe even think about it more as an agency service than as actual members of your team. There can be kind of a mix here. Go to behindthescenes.studio, behindthescenes.studio, to start exploring that opportunity for you. It has worked great for me and for my clients. I have loved working with them. Incredible people and great partners in my business. They can be the same for you. So behindthescenes.studio, if you're trying to staff up your design and edit team for ads and really across your business in e-commerce, behindthescenes.studio, go tell them that I sent you. Okay, so what should you do? If you've hit that plateau, if you've gone backwards, how should you go about solving the problem? Now, of course, I can't speak to your specific account, so I'm going to give you a list of things to run through that might be the problem, and I want you to consider, okay? So number one, let's start with the media buying side of things, okay? What not to do first is already, we've said, switch back to auto bid. I don't think you should do that. Again, I understand the instinct. I understand that you might do it just to scratch the itch, and that it maybe in the long run, it'll save you from doing it over and over again, and it'll reinforce your by doing it and seeing the worst performance, will reinforce your confidence in manual bids and make it so that it takes that idea off the table, okay? But I don't think you should do that. What you should do instead is troubleshoot it, okay? You should troubleshoot it. You should dig in and try to understand whether you've got an overspend or an underspend relative to your hopes and relative to your goals, right? You should try to understand what the problem is as best as you can in as many places as you can. Okay, so number one place you should look right away, very obviously, is actually in your conversion settings and making sure that your pixel is actually tracking data correctly. There's a simple way to do this, which is to see the number of purchases Meta is attributing in your dashboard versus the number of purchases that are actually happening on your website. I saw this happen the other day. Somebody took my advice, worked with my sponsor BILY. They installed the BILY pixel on their website, and it started double counting purchases with another pixel installed that they had. I think they had sort of an incorrect installation in the way they had done it. And so when they did that, suddenly they were double reporting purchases, and it sort of created this big giant mess, right? So you got to go clear off those kinds of things first. You might be underreporting. I've also seen another situation where somebody added a third party sort of sales channel in Shopify, and that messed up their pixel tracking, and so then they had to go and figure that out. It didn't get rid of all their purchases, but some of them. And so that's the first thing you should do. Just like go check the technical details, make sure everything is okay there, and see what you can figure out. If you have a third party pixel provider, go talk with them, make sure it's working. Pull in a dev that you trust, something like that, to go do that. But the simple thing there is go check, particularly your new customer revenue against your ad spend, depending on how good of a job you're doing with exclusions and some of those things, and make sure that that's all working as correctly as possible. Okay, so that's the first thing to go do. Check all of that. Okay, Meta cannot optimize off of bad data. That's because it can only optimize off the data you feed it. So you need to give it good data. All right. So there's number one. Okay, I won't go too deep there. Hopefully you understand some steps to take. Oh, by the way, I will say one thing about that. This is where good Google Analytics tags really helps you. If historically a 0.5 Google Analytics last click ROAS gets you to the number that you want, and you keep getting a 0.5 and you keep getting a 0.5, but suddenly you have twice the revenue, something is probably wrong there. So right a 0.5 Google Analytics last click revenue, if you've done a good job with your UTM parameters and some of those things, that stuff will that can be a nice historical like pulse check on your current performance, because while Google Analytics ROAS doesn't tell you the whole truth, it doesn't lie to you. It only the little bit of truth it tells you is really consistent, and so you can check that. Okay, so if you don't know what I'm talking about there, don't worry about it. But it can be one way to look at it at some point. Maybe I'll create a piece of content about this, but it's one of the things I'll check. Okay, so there's that. Okay, number two, check your optimization settings. Okay. This is another thing that goes wrong. People optimize for 7-day click, 1-day view, and then they don't get the performance that they want, or it's not netting out on the revenue they want, and it's because there's way too many view purchases, for example, in their data set, and they're multi-channel, and they're way over attributing purchases to Meta or something because there's too many view purchases. Okay, so that could be it. Now that's probably not the problem given the incrementality studies I've seen, but it could be. Another simpler version of this is that you optimize for 1-day click or you optimize for 7-day click, but then you judge the performance on a different time window. So you optimize for 7-day click, and you're like, I need $100 CAC on 7 days, and you get a 20% lift in your customers from day 1 to day 7. And so you start getting on day 1 of your ads or day 2 of your ads, you've got $130 CAC, $120 CAC, and you've optimized for $100 CAC on 7 days, and you're like, why is my CAC too high? You're looking at it, I'm supposed to have cost caps or bid caps, they're supposed to be working for me correctly. And actually your CAC is going to be fine. It's just that you haven't reached the full 7 days of the window on which you optimized. And so you got to make sure that your optimization settings are in line with your measurement settings, with how you're actually measuring your spend. I call this the delayed purchase multiplier, and I actually have this built into my unit economics sheet which is free on my website. The unit economics sheet is shows you, as a simple way of handling your unit economics at the ad level to figure out your targets. But there's this delayed purchase multiplier section of the sheet so that you can actually see what kind of CAC you need on 7-day click or 1-day click relative to the performance that you actually want on a longer window, which is like 28-day click. 28-day click is the way I measure all of my ads. It's more consistent. And it's real. Like if somebody clicked and they bought within 28 days, that's a real purchase that Meta drove. Some people just wait longer. They just wait longer than a day or 7 days to go make a purchase. And so you should count all of those, and you should build that into your targets. That unit economics sheet that I just showed is free on my website. If you enter your email address at agfgrowth.com into the email capture, either in the footer or on the pop-up that comes, it's one of the 4 free essential e-commerce resources that you'll get delivered to you. So go check that out if you want to use that. You just duplicate it and have your own version of it and go from there. So check that. Optimization settings is a place where this goes wrong all the time. I see it constantly. People are measuring the performance on a different window than they're optimizing for, and view conversions are throwing them off, and so they have problems there. Okay, so there's that. From here, there could be some other issues that are happening related to your specific ad account and related to some just weird stuff that happens. I have recently started to put together some videos diagnosing people's bid and cost cap problems, basically, right? Because this kind of question comes to me all the time. Like, how come cost caps didn't work for me? How come bid caps didn't work for me? And the answer varies all over the place. And so I'll just go look at somebody's ad account, and make a video. And my agreement is I'll do it for free as long as I can share it publicly and start to create a playlist of videos where people can just go look at this and see the way that I'm thinking through all of this. I've gotten incredibly good feedback on these videos, by the way. It's a good reason to subscribe to my channel because I'm going to post them every time on my channel. If you're watching this on YouTube in particular, if you're listening to this for through regular podcast feeds, I probably won't post them all there because they're too video intense. So subscribe on YouTube and make sure that you get those. And there's a specific playlist that I'm going to be putting these into if you want to subscribe to that as well. But you can go watch those and learn how I'm thinking about this and try to diagnose any of the media buying specific issues. One person I worked with is an apparel brand and was seeing CAC range really widely relative to Target on their DPAs. Another person just had this weird spike all of a sudden. And I think it actually was probably a meta problem. And I showed him why I thought that. It was a small one and it self-corrected really, really fast. But I think there was an issue there. And so I've got more of those coming. So go check those out and you can do that. But there's actually even a better way to do this, which is to get help with your ad account specifically through admission. And this is the last thing you should do to troubleshoot this. Like, I talk about admission from CTC all the time, and I just want you to know how serious I am about this resource. If you are trying to get better at media buying and you need a little bit of help with that, admission is an unparalleled resource. We do things very slightly differently. Admission CTC runs more cost caps, I run more bid caps, but I don't care. It's going to take you so far because the information quality is so extremely high in pre-recorded course content. You can go get a whole bunch of stuff that's going to guide you by the hand through how to do this stuff. But then, crucially, CTC is staffed with media buyers who buy like 100% of their Facebook ads media. It's probably 95% or something, but the vast majority, 8-figure, 9-figure brands spending millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars on bid caps and cost caps and TROS. They have seen it all. Those media buyers are available to you for like $150 an hour to look at your account specifically with you, diagnose what's happening instead of you just reverting to, I'm going to switch back to ASC. And for $150, additional to the very reasonable charge that admission already is, you will end up saving yourself like thousands and thousands of dollars on blown ad spend by making a catastrophic mistake in switching your media buying thing, and have somebody just look at it with you, diagnose the problem with you, and dig in with you, has really good experience and training on how to do this. And actually, by the way, my link, because I have an affiliate relationship with admission, my link actually gets your first one of those consulting calls for free, or if you sign up for a year, you get 4 of them for free. And so it's like a killer deal. Admission is already extremely reasonably priced, but if you're running media yourself, like, go use that resource, get better through the tools that they have from pre-recorded content, and then take coaching calls and diagnose your account. So this is like one of those things that I just don't understand why people don't absolutely flock to it if you are serious about getting better as a media buyer. It really is an unparalleled resource. Go check the link in the show notes of this. Make sure you do that. Click through that. You will get that one call for free again, or you can even get 4 calls for free if you book a year in advance. And it's just a really, really good deal. So incredibly expensive. I mean, like, when I charge for my time, I charge way more than what $150 an hour is, right? Because there's just only so much time in the day. And so yeah, it's a really, really good deal. Go get that and go solve the media buying things. Learn the fundamentals yourself through the courses, and then go and get the calls yourself. Okay, so there's that. You need better Facebook ads event tracking, and you can do it with BILY. Make sure that your website is passing the most amount of data and information possible back to your Facebook ads dashboard, your meta ads dashboard. You can do that by increasing your event match quality score with 100% server-side tracking through the Conversions API with my friends at BILY. That's BILY.ai. BILY is who I use with my clients to handle the Facebook pixel install on websites. It is so incredibly easy. It is like a couple of clicks and you've got the pixel install done. No developers required. You can also use it as a one-stop shop replacement for Google Tag Manager so that you can do the same with GA4, Google Ads. Again, like one click and you've got enhanced conversions set up, ready to go. Snap ads, Twitter ads, like everything. It's all right there. in BILY, BILY.ai. The main thing I'm using it for, though, is better tracking of my Facebook ads. And if you are still using the native Shopify integration to do your Facebook ads tracking, you really need to upgrade to BILY. You can do it right away for just $1 for the first month, and the ongoing cost of BILY is meaningfully more affordable than all the other big players in the space. They have priced competitively on purpose because they want your business and they trust their service a lot to get it, and so they're giving you a great rate to do it. So BILY.ai, BILY.ai, get 100% server-side tracking at a much better price than the other options. There's so much to it. Go check it out. Test it for $1 for 1 month. Okay, now, let's say you've done all that, and what you discover is that your media buying is actually right. Everything checks out. Okay, so the media buying side, check, check, and check. Okay, you're like, nope, my bid caps are right, my cost caps are right, my TROS is right, my optimization's right, I'm tracking data the right ways, I've got BILY, I'm like, whatever, right? You're doing all the things, everything checks out, and now you're set at this place where it's like, I wanted to spend 100, I can only spend 50, and the media buying is not the problem. Everything is firing and going great. Now what do I do outside of media buying? Okay, Meta is correct, I am wrong, and now I have to go solve the problem. Okay, so there's a lot you can do here, and I'm going to resist the temptation to tell you to go hammer away at your unit economics so that you can exist on a lower ROAS target, though I think you should do that too. I'm going to resist the idea to tell you to change which product you're advertising so that you focus on higher LTV products instead of lower LTV products, or higher TAM products instead of lower TAM products. Like, those are the things that you should consider doing, of course, and you should always be chipping away at in your business. But maybe you're a media buyer or an agency side and you're listening to this and you're watching this and you don't actually have control of those things. So I want to focus instead on the creative and marketing things that you can do next. Okay. So number one, I want you to step back for a second. We're going to talk about calendar here, and in sort of a different way. Well, let's just start on calendar actually. Okay. This is underrated because so much of the time when you hear advice like mine and others, you think about the idea of sort of constant improvement in the ad account itself, as if the main way you push your brand forward or your client forward is with sort of like evergreen improvements. You just make your funnel a little better, you make your creative a little better. And I want to come back to that in a second. Okay, that is something that I think makes a real difference. And for some subsets of customers, that's something you should be doing, right? If you have extremely high LTV, if you're a subscription-based brand, you really don't want to run a lot of promotional moments. You sort of are subject to seasonality as much as anything else, because you want to make sure that the subscription is well incentivized and people don't have a reason to cancel their subscription and all that stuff, right? So providing all the value to subscribers, and just hammering away those funnels can be the whole thing. But outside of that, you should consider the marketing calendar next. You should consider how your brand makes a meaningful impact on its customers and how you message that in particular moments. And so let's start by thinking about the calendar. The first thing I want you to consider is seasonality. So this was definitely part of what was happening for one client that I worked with that hit a plateau and then actually some backward steps. We didn't realize it at the time, but when we were crushing, everything was going great. We were riding a massive seasonality wave at the same time as we launched really good performing ads. When that happened, everything went awesome for a long time, and then it started to tail off. Part of that was maybe ad fatigue or something like that. Part of that was maybe some other things going on in the business, but for sure, a huge part of that is seasonality. Okay. And again, I did a whole episode about this because it struck me as a bigger deal than people normally realize. And I think the episode is called, again, I'll link it, called Seasonality is a Bigger Factor Than You Realize. But it is true. One of the things to watch out for is the possibility that seasonality is playing into your performance. And you've just forecasted that wrong. You're a younger business, your meta ads are growing sort of for the first time, you're investing more deeply, things are going great. And you just don't realize how much the seasonal moment is affecting your category. That can happen, and you need to pay attention to that. Okay. And secondly, now, that's sort of the marketing calendar happening to you, but now you need to take that and go another step, and you need to happen to the marketing calendar. Okay. So you need to go exert some influence on the marketing calendar. And I think about that in two primary ways. So let's actually start with a foundational comment before we get to those two primary ways. One of them is, the foundational comment is try to go with the tailwinds of seasonality rather than try to fighting the headwinds. So what I mean is, if you want to make your business bigger, it is much easier to use seasonal tailwinds to make big moments bigger than it is to create big moments during seasonal slowdowns. right? During seasonal headwinds. So as a general principle, to plan your marketing calendar, go and try to figure out how to make it so that your seasonal moments can get as big as possible. If you're a Father's Day brand, don't go try to make Mother's Day a bigger moment because it's out there. Go try to make Father's Day a bigger moment. Okay. Now, this creates cash planning challenges and all those kinds of things, but it will make your moments bigger in general. And so that's what you should do. Okay. So there's that. So at the baseline, within that framework, you ought to do two things. You should think about product development. One of the reasons your brand may be slowing down is because you first introduced a bunch of new products to people and they went great and you got some spend off of them, etc. And now you need to keep introducing new and compelling products to people, both to your audience and to reopen up new audiences. One of the things I see happen is that brands get a little lazy. They launch and they expect to keep growing forever off of the same 5 products they launched with. And in fact, every new product is a chance to open up new customers, to reach new audiences, and to reactivate your past customers, which makes your whole business more efficient. Okay, so think about your product development. Like, for example, if you are in apparel, this is really obvious to you. One of the questions I would be asking is, how many new products can I release? How fast? How good can I get at this? I've used this example before, but the all-time example of this, in my view, that I've ever seen was ColourPop, makeup brand, who could like go from, I forget what the exact thing is, but it was like from product idea to release in front of their audience in like 7 days. So they could just test products so fast, so quickly that they could just get so many products in the marketplace. They built their supply chain to do that. That's the kind of thinking that I think is right for many, many businesses that are multiple products, right? So this is not your CPG consumable type product so much, though it may be that as well. But to think about that marketing calendar and that product calendar, and how those two things go together. How do you release new products? And then, of course, sale moments, promotional moments. How do you create very big sales in your calendar? That will be easier. It'll be much easier to create a lot of margin by generating big moments like that. And the better you can really make your product and your brand resonate deeply with your customer in those moments, the more effective this will be. Okay, so the cooler of the thing you can do, the more exciting of the thing you can do, the thing that your customer will love more, that's going to be the difference. That's going to make a huge difference in your ability to in your ability to make those moments really, really big. And the more often you can do those things, the better it's going to work as well. And the less susceptible you're going to be to plateaus and slowdowns and backward steps. Okay. So product and promotion are two of the big, big ways to fight this. It will also make every customer more valuable too if you can do a good job of those things, which probably allows you to either acquire customers at more scale or even to pay more to do it if it comes to it. Okay. So there's that. All right, now let's go to the other thing that you are probably thinking of when you think about this problem. Look, if your meta ad account performance has slowed down, the problem's not with meta, the problem's not with the channel, and the answer is almost certainly not to go to another channel. The time to go to another channel is when your meta ad performance is crushing, okay? Because you're not going to go find a more efficient channel in the vast majority of cases, at least at scale. You might find some. I don't know. There's some interesting stuff happening on TikTok shops. I don't really know anybody who's doing it bigger than meta, but like, maybe there's something there. YouTube creators, I talked about that with Nate Lagos a couple weeks ago. Like, again, link in the show notes for that. Really good. Nate's getting 8x ROI, but it's not at the scale of Meta. And so the time to go open up new channels is not when your performance is going badly. Instead, that's when it is time to double down on creative. I want you to think about the checklist of creative. Like, are you really reaching customers at the creative level? Is your messaging hitting customers in a way that is speaking deeply to them? Is the angle right? Is the hook right? Are you invoking curiosity from the right customer with your hook? Are you creating enough creative? Are you generating variable types of creative? Are you speaking to multiple subsets of your customers? How good of a job are you doing on the creative side, and can you actually make that create more value for you just by generating more and better creative? So much of the time, especially in earlier stages of business, that is a bigger problem than people realize. It just is. It's a bigger problem than people realize. And when you get frustrated because you launch 100 pieces of creative and none of them make a big difference, the temptation is to go, something is wrong with Meta. It's probably not wrong with Meta. It's probably because your creative still isn't good enough, and you need to go back to the well and think again. Am I actually reaching my customers where they are at with value that exceeds the cost to them in their minds? Am I making their lives better in some way that is tangible to them with this product in a way that is worth them spending their money on? Am I attracting the attention of that person with my hook, with my headline and my still image ad, whatever? Am I actually doing that? It is about words, it is about ideas, it is about messaging, it is about how you communicate those things, and it is hard work. Now, you may be able to sort of AI scale this so fast and build an awesome operational process to where you're just generating so much creative against so much product that you just sort of eventually have to win, right? I don't know. As I've said in a couple recent episodes, I'm not really sure if I've seen that work quite yet. It seems to me that continuing to push deeply into creative and messaging and think more and more. And for one of my clients that's plateaued right now, this is what I'm spending all my time on. How do I make sure that I just communicate value better? How do I just make sure I communicate value better? Okay, that's basically what I'm trying to do. I apparently haven't done a good enough job for plateaued at communicating that value, and then I'm going to try and scale up from there. Okay, so there's number one. Number two, landers. Landing pages are a funny thing. I think sometimes people overuse landing pages. They basically recreate their product page on a landing page, and I don't really know what the point of that is. Like, your PDP already has a bunch of information on it and probably converts fine. I've seen plenty and plenty of ad accounts that are running landing pages that don't actually add anything. Like, they're running landing pages because they're supposed to run landing pages, right? The place where I think landing pages probably could help you more is your ability to communicate a specific angle to a specific customer, and then to also bring a specific offer to that customer. So if you have one product and it has two different applications to two different customers, building separate funnels, separate landing pages where you can communicate that same product with the different angles, different imagery, different copy, different benefits, right? Then you can probably at that point take some forward steps. And landing page development is a really good use of your time and effort and money, because it allows you to go from creative all the way through the funnel in a way that is more direct and speaks more to the specific needs of your customer and resonates more deeply with them, instead of just doing a more general PDP, which by definition, your PDP or collection page has to appeal to a wider group of people because it has to speak to sort of everybody who ends up there, right? So that's the place I think for landing pages. And then also, like I said, for specific offers. Sometimes landing page development is good because it's a really easy way to test offers, right? Landing page A versus landing page B, same exact content, different offers. Which one of these makes a bigger impact? What happens if I do a larger discount here or there? What happens if whatever, all of those kinds of things. So that's where I think landing pages can be really helpful. And I think some brands ought to really invest in those as a way to unlock more scale. I've seen this happen in a few places. It's something I'm certainly doing with one of my clients. Again, it's Plateaued. We're putting in a lot of time and money and effort into developing landers. We're going to test those against each other really clearly. I think it's a really big deal as long as you're using it the right way. If you're just using it as a general message about the brand, it's probably not helping you very much. Instead, use it to speak to specific customers all the way down through the funnel. That's the value of it. Okay. And then offers. I mentioned it as well. This is another thing you should be considering playing with if you haven't before. Offers can make a tremendous difference. What happens if you go gift with purchase? What happens if you go 30% off your first purchase? What happens if you go subscription only versus no subscription option versus either option is there? What happens if you bundle differently? Play with all of those things. There are all kinds of ways in which unit economics change based on those things. LTV changes based on those things, and the customer perception of the value of the product changes based on those things. Okay, so offer is, in my view, two things. It's product and price. Okay, that's what I mean by the offer. It's the combination of the product and the price. And so start playing with that. What are the products? This is bundling versus not, right? What's the price? That would be subscription versus not, right? That's something like, I guess subscription is probably sort of a middle ground between product and offer, or product and price, but you get the idea, right? Price obviously is clear in some other ways. You can offer different discounts. You can, again, bundling, you can push the price up, all of those things. So that's the basic idea. Think about your offer. If you haven't tested that much, and if you can use a lander to do it, that can be something that can be a really big difference, make it really fast. And I'll tell you another sort of subset of that. If you've really listened carefully to me and you're running a mix of bid cap and target ROAS, you're actually you've in that case, your ad account has a mix of lowest cost bidding and highest value bidding. So you're actually, with your highest value bidding specifically for customers who spend more money. If you're doing that mix, okay, then it's possible that what you want to do is create large AOV bundles for your highest value customers, because you're actually trying to get higher value customers. And then for your lowest cost customers, you want to think more about like, okay, can I just do like my straight ahead regular offer, maybe a discount, whatever, and then find the unit economics that work for both and try to get both. That can open up some additional scale for you. So, okay, so that's what I would do, right? To just walk that back. Assume that Meta is not the problem. Assume that I am the problem, okay? And then from there, troubleshoot my media buying, troubleshoot my pixel setup, all the kind of basic stuff. Make sure everything is working correctly, attribution windows, those kinds of things. I would probably join admission to really button those kinds of things up. And then from there, go through the list: seasonality, marketing calendar, how's my brand resonating, and then all the way down to creative, lander, offer. Look, that is basic advice in some ways, right? What I'm telling you, you've heard before, but that's part of the point. That is the fundamental challenge of marketing. It's to communicate the value of your product to the customer in a way that resonates with them. Meta, machine learning, manual bids, just all they're doing is putting a governor on how much you will spend to do that. That's it. With a probabilistic forecasting engine, it's going to tell you whether or not it thinks you can do this at scale. But the challenge is fundamentally the same as any other bidding method. And if the bidding method is right, all it's doing is feeding back to you whether or not you've accomplished that at the scale that you want to accomplish it at. If you haven't, the problem is there for you to solve, and that's that. That's that. That's what you have to do. You have to put your head down and solve the problem. That's actually the hardest problem. Building a business that sells products that people actually love at scale, that's the fundamentally hard problem. It will present itself to you at different times in your journey in unique ways. You have to go get ready, strap in, and solve it. There's a bunch of resources I mentioned, including admission, my sponsors on this, some past episodes that I think can help you, playlist, like all of that stuff is in the show notes. Go check it out. And of course, like I said, if you want that unit economics sheet, go to ajfgrowth.com, give me your email address there. It will get kicked over to you automatically. It will also enter you into my newsletter, which is something I'm working on, trying to scale up a little bit more. All right, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, notwithstanding the audio problems, everything I'm doing can be found at ajfgrowth.com. And again, the show notes have all the other stuff that you want. I will talk to you. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening. And that's it. I'll talk to you next time. Thank you.